Rain hammered against the jagged cliffs that loomed over Ravenwood Manor, a skeletal structure of rotting wood and blackened stone. Evelyn Carter tightened her coat against the chill and stepped out of her rental car, boots sinking slightly into the muddy drive. Lightning flashed, illuminating the mansion's towering spires, broken windows, and tangled ivy that seemed to crawl up the walls like living veins. Locals had warned her, in their quiet, wary voices, that no one who enters ever comes out the same. Evelyn had brushed off their caution with a confident smile, but a tiny, uneasy knot of fear twisted in her stomach as she approached the front door. The door groaned in protest as she pushed it open, the scent of decay and damp earth rushing out to greet her. The interior was a vast foyer shrouded in darkness, lit only by the occasional flash of lightning through the shattered windows. Dust hung in the air like a living fog, swirling with every movement. Faded portraits lined the walls, their painted eyes seeming to follow her with unnerving intent. Evelyn swallowed hard, setting her bag on a nearby table. She had come to document the manor's mysteries, but already the house seemed to be watching her, judging her. She stepped further inside, the floorboards creaking underfoot like whispered warnings. Every corridor she explored twisted unnaturally, hallways bending in ways that seemed impossible, doors opening onto rooms that appeared to have no logic. One led to a library with shelves that stretched into shadow, another to a bedroom where the furniture was arranged as though someone had left in a hurry, though dust suggested no one had been there for decades. Evelyn pulled out her flashlight and diary, determined to record everything. But each step made her feel smaller, swallowed by the oppressive atmosphere of the mansion. Then came the first whisper, faint, almost imperceptible, calling her name. She froze, heart hammering, turning slowly, only to see empty air. The whisper grew louder, a soft, urgent pleading echoing from every direction. The front door she had entered through seemed further away than it should have been. She spun, but the door wasn't there, replaced by a wall that had not been there moments ago. Panic began to rise. Evelyn forced herself to take a deep breath and pressed onward. Each room she opened seemed to grow darker, the shadows stretching and writhing as if alive. A cold draft brushed past her shoulder, and she flinched, turning quickly, but no one was there. She felt a presence, unseen yet undeniably close, stalking her movements, waiting. Lightning flashed again, revealing a flicker of movement in the corner of her eye, a figure, pale and almost transparent, vanishing the moment she looked directly. The storm outside intensified, rain lashing against the windows and wind rattling the loose shutters. Evelyn realized with a chill that the house was not simply abandoned, it was alive, and it was aware of her presence. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but the doors had vanished, the hallways twisted, and the shadows deepened. She was trapped, a visitor in a place that had waited a long time to welcome her. A soft, skeletal brush against her shoulder made her gasp. Evelyn whirled around. Nothing. The whispering grew, now a chorus of unseen voices, calling, pleading, mocking. She took a trembling step forward, knowing one thing with absolute certainty. Ravenwood Manor was only beginning to reveal its darkness. Evelyn's hands shook as she clutched her flashlight, the beam cutting through the suffocating darkness of Ravenwood Manor. Every door she opened now seemed to lead not just to another room, but to a different kind of terror. One room held a grand ballroom frozen in eerie silence, chandeliers swaying despite the lack of wind, and ghostly figures dancing in mid-step, their faces hidden in shadow. She blinked, and the figures vanished as if they had never existed. She stumbled into a narrow hallway lined with mirrors, each reflecting her terrified expression, but not entirely. In one, her eyes were hollow, black pits staring back at her. In another, her mouth twisted into a silent scream. Evelyn backed away, only to find that the hallway stretched impossibly longer than before, walls shifting subtly, doors appearing where there had been none. Panic clawed at her chest. She was losing control of reality itself. A faint, rhythmic whisper reached her ears. It was almost familiar, like a memory half forgotten. She followed the sound and came across a small study, the desk littered with yellowed papers and a thick leather-bound diary. She opened it, revealing the writings of Lord Ravenwood, the manor's original owner. The entries spoke of dark rituals, of trapping souls in the house, of doors that were not just doors, but portals to different shadows of the human mind. The last entry was smeared with what looked like dried blood. Fear strengthens the house. Courage can free the soul, but few dare try. Evelyn's heart raced. The whispers grew louder, no longer just echoes. They were calling her, some pleading, some mocking, blending together into a chorus of torment. Shadows along the walls began to stretch toward her, curling like living smoke, flickering at the edges of her vision. She realized the manor wasn't merely haunted. It fed on fear, growing stronger with each heartbeat of terror. She tried to leave, turning back toward the hall she had entered, but the front door was gone, replaced again by a featureless wall. Her flashlight flickered, casting erratic shadows that seemed to move independently, forming faces, hands, and monstrous shapes that reached for her. Evelyn's breath came in ragged gasps, but she forced herself to keep moving, desperate to find another exit. Then she saw them, figures trapped behind glass, suspended in a hidden chamber. Their eyes were wide, mouths frozen in silent screams, and their hands pressed against the glass as if begging for release. Evelyn understood. These were the souls of previous visitors, captured by the manor, doomed to wander its endless corridors in torment. A shiver ran down her spine. If she didn't act, she would join them. A sudden thunder of trash shook the mansion. The shadows convulsed violently, almost pushing her backward. The whispers rose into a cacophony of voices, each one urging her toward doors she wasn't sure led anywhere. Evelyn knew one thing with certainty. She had to confront the heart of the manor, or she would never escape. Gathering her courage, she pressed forward, her steps echoing in the endless darkness. Every door she opened now seemed to breathe, exhale, and beckon her deeper into the house's malevolent embrace. And somewhere, unseen, the house waited, hungry for her fear. Cliffhanger. Evelyn pushed open a door that should have not existed, a staircase spiraling downward into absolute blackness. A voice hissed from the darkness, whispering her name, urging her to step inside. Evelyn's flashlight trembled in her hand as she peered down the spiraling staircase. The darkness below seemed alive, swallowing the light, the walls pulsating like a heartbeat. Every instinct screamed at her to turn back, but a strange compulsion urged her forward. She stepped cautiously, each footfall echoing unnaturally, as if the house were mirroring her fear. The staircase ended in a massive chamber, circular and impossibly vast. Shadows clung to the ceiling and floor, moving independently of any light source. In the center lay a ritual circle, etched in dark, glistening stains, surrounded by remnants of candles long burnt out. Evelyn's pulse raced as fragments of Lord Ravenwood's diary resurfaced in her mind. This was the heart of the house, the place where souls were trapped and the darkness fed. Suddenly, the shadows coalesced into shapes, figures with hollow eyes and twisted smiles. They whispered Evelyn's deepest fears, memories of failure, regret, and loss, blending them into visions that clawed at her mind. She saw herself, or rather versions of herself, in horrific scenarios, screaming silently, drowning in endless darkness, turning on friends she loved. The room seemed to stretch and twist as though the house itself was trying to break her will. She stumbled backward, almost tripping over the skeletal remains of a previous visitor. The whispers became a chorus of mocking voices, repeating her name, taunting her weakness. Evelyn felt her courage waver. For the first time, doubt crept in. Perhaps she wouldn't escape. Perhaps she would join the countless souls trapped in the manor forever. Then she remembered the diary's final warning. Courage can free the soul, but few dare try. She took a shaky breath and forced herself to focus. The shadows lunged, their forms writhing and stretching toward her. Evelyn shouted, a desperate sound that echoed through the chamber. The shadows recoiled momentarily, hissing as if in pain, revealing a narrow corridor she hadn't seen before. She ran, every step a struggle against the oppressive darkness. Doors appeared along the corridor, each revealing visions more horrifying than the last. Mirrors showing her death in gruesome detail, hallways lined with screaming faces, and windows revealing endless voids stretching beyond comprehension. Evelyn forced herself not to look away, understanding that fear was the manor's weapon, and she couldn't give it the satisfaction. Finally, she reached a massive, ornate door, darker than the rest, almost pulsating with a life of its own. She knew instinctively that this was the source of the house's power. As she touched it, the whispers intensified, screaming all at once in voices she recognized, her family, friends, even strangers she had passed on the street, pleading, accusing, warning. The door began to resist, pushing back with an invisible force, bending reality around her. Evelyn pressed her palm harder against it, summoning every ounce of courage she had left. The shadows surged, but she gritted her teeth, shouting her defiance into the void. The house trembled, walls cracking, and the ritual circle's faint glow began to pulse in response to her resolve. Just as the shadows clawed at her, the door slowly creaked open, revealing a black, endless void that seemed alive, waiting and calling her name. Evelyn realized she had a choice: step into the darkness and confront the heart of the manor, or be consumed where she stood. Evelyn's chest heaved as she stared into the black void beyond the massive door. It wasn't just darkness, it was alive, pulsating and whispering her name, promising horrors she could barely imagine. Every instinct screamed to turn back, yet some primal understanding pushed her forward. This was the only way to survive. She swallowed her fear and stepped inside. The void closed around her like thick smoke, but Evelyn forced herself to focus. Shapes formed from the shadows, twisted, nightmarish visions of her deepest fears, her failures, her regrets. She saw herself trapped in icy waters, falling endlessly, her friends screaming silently for help she could never give. The shadows surged, coiling around her limbs, pulling at her mind. She screamed, but it was swallowed, absorbed by the house's malevolent presence. Then a small, defiant voice inside her mind whispered, "You are not theirs. You are not afraid of them." Clinging to that thought, Evelyn lifted her chin and confronted the darkness head-on. The shadows hissed and shrieked, twisting into grotesque forms, but she refused to look away. Every step she took forward, the whispers faltered, and the void's pulsating darkness wavered. She remembered Lord Ravenwood's diary. Courage could free the soul. Channeling every ounce of strength, she screamed, not in fear, but in defiance at the void. The shadows recoiled, writhing in pain as the walls of the chamber trembled violently. The door behind her slammed shut, but she didn't retreat. She pressed forward into the heart of the darkness, feeling it fight to consume her entirely. For what felt like hours, Evelyn battled the living shadows, confronting illusions of death, betrayal, and despair. The house groaned and shuddered as if in agony. Then, slowly, the oppressive weight of the darkness began to lift. The shadows dissipated, scattering like smoke caught in the wind. The pulsating heart of the manor flickered and dimmed. Evelyn, exhausted and trembling, stepped out of the void and into a dimly lit hallway she recognized, the real hallway of Ravenwood Manor. She didn't stop running until the rain was soaking her hair, the cold wind cutting through her soaked coat. Ravenwood Manor loomed behind her, silent, seemingly dormant, yet every shadow along its crumbling walls whispered that it was waiting. She collapsed into her car, hands shaking on the wheel, trying to comprehend what she had survived. As Evelyn drove away, her breaths ragged and her mind reeling, the manor receded into the darkness behind her. For a moment, she allowed herself a fragile hope. She had escaped. But in the rear-view mirror, a shadow flickered, pale, formless, and impossibly still. Her heart lurched. A soft whisper, barely audible, slipped into the wind. "Welcome back." Evelyn's grip tightened on the wheel. The terror wasn't over. The darkness of Ravenwood Manor had followed her, a lingering echo of the horrors she had faced. Somewhere in the night it waited, patient and eternal, ready to claim the next soul daring enough to enter its doors. The story ends with Evelyn driving into the stormy night, safe for now, but forever marked by the house's darkness, leaving the audience with a lingering chill and a sense that Ravenwood Manor's evil was far from finished.